How do you feel about this amazing success all of a sudden?
Apparently, kids of all ages are enjoying scat singing. And apparently it's kind of an obscure art form. But to me, I've been scat singing all my life, man. I mean, also, zero in on the vest. Look at the vest. It's got Mickey and Pluto and Donald. And everybody is on here. All my favorite child cartoon characters. You know, excuse me, I'm a grown-up man here. I can't be acting like a child. So yes, I forgot your question, Mona.
No, I mean, the thing is...
So, strictly between us kids, the show's been temporarily interrupted. Some people came in on a pair of roller skates. Look at the roller skates. Roller skates just came in on my TV interview. Can you beat that?
What began as a straightforward video book review on a really spectacular biography by Gina Wagat had evolved into something much greater. The further I read the book, the amount of research I did for this, the time spent going through interviews that John did, and ultimately, the conclusion I came to, that a mere video book review would just not do justice to the Scatman. Despite having been a fan of Scatman John for years, I hadn't known all this time who John really was as a person. I was a fan of his music, his lyrics, and his message, but it was from reading through Gina's biography on John that I came to discover that John had a much greater depth to him than I had realized on the surface.
The kids are clapping their hands. They're saying ski ba 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 do. Everybody's answering it. They're out there dancing, man. It's a pleasure to play concerts for people that are really appreciating it. It's great. I am like a 53-year-old kid in a candy store. I'm having a ball. Scatman is intended to be something positive, and I think it's starting to penetrate. You know? It's a very positive attempt to offer a solution. Yes, indeed, kids. Do you know what I mean? Am I really on MTV? Oh my goodness gracious. Hi there.
John was a Scatman with a heart bigger than life, a man blessed at scatting who sought to bring joy and kindness to those alike. And I think it's only right that you get to know, like I did, who the Scatman really was, and why he wanted to welcome you to his world. This is the story of a man born with a trait that haunted him all his life. A man who spent years hiding away in shame, only to discover that what he had believed to be his weakness was in fact his greatest strength. A strength that would bring warmth, happiness, and comfort to countless people who felt alone, rejected, and outcasted. This is the story of John Paul Larkin. John Paul Larkin was born on March 13th, 1942 to an Irish Catholic family at Stanley Hospital in El Monte, California. He was native to El Serrano and grew up there. John's Catholic upbringing would play a role in his life, as he always turned to God and sought His presence. He felt deeply regarding spirituality.
The first thing I do every day is I get up, have a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, and say my prayers. Important stuff. Try to connect.
So the rest just comes naturally during the day?
The rest is just, okay, God, I'm going to go this way, and if I should come into a stone wall, I'm going to turn left. I'm not going to push that wall down. The easiest way possible. Just take your time.
Despite later renouncing religion as causing division, he still felt strongly about spirituality and would often get in touch with the Creator before shows during strenuous hours. John from birth was already destined to be a musician. When his mother of a former jazz singer background would sing him a melody, and he would sing it right back when being nursed.
I've been scat singing since before I learned to speak. My mother would hold me in her arms And as she was nursing me, I'd go da 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 da. So I've been scatting a long time.
As earliest as John tried to speak, he stuttered. During the 1940s and 50s, when John was growing up, people didn't understand the origin of stuttering and had thought it was traumatic based. It would take more than 50 years for people to find it's actually rooted in neurology rather than psychology. For most of his school life, he attended private schools, beginning with and mainly L. Staines Catholic School, which was opposite to the church of the same name John and his family attended. Unfortunately for John, school life was not so easy due to his stuttering.
Speaking only for me, the hardest part for me in my life being a person who stutters was my childhood. It was traumatic, man.
While his older brother by 2 years, Billy, did great, John struggled. He was unable to get a word out when having to read aloud for his class. Kids would pick on John for the way he spoke and bully him.
My childhood was turbulent because I stuttered severely. It was bad. And of course, kids will be kids. And it was like, oh, they used to make fun of me, and I used to, I remember one time, several of my friends locked themselves up in a house and started making these grotesque sounds at me. And I waited for them for 2 days, and I finally got them.
One class assignment came where he had to write up about a massive news story of 1954. It was a day that he'd never forget.
I remember one incident in about the 6th grade where I was to stand up in front of a classroom and try to recite a current event that was going on at that time. I studied that little tiny article for like 2 weeks, memorized every aspect of it. I got up in the classroom, broke out tears, and cried and went back to my seat. I could not get the first word out.
What was the current event?
The State Department of Motor Vehicles said today that a county-by-county study showed 5,787,654 vehicles registered in California as of June 30th. The department emphasized that this was only a mid-year report and that the total number of vehicles on our streets and highways by the end of the year would be approximately 6,150,000.
Around this time was also when he'd be introducing to smoking at the age of 12 by a kid named Bernie. It would be a habit that took him the longest of all habits he later formed to drop. It was an afternoon in 1956 that on his television set he'd hear the sound of jazz. It was Dave Brubeck playing with his quartet, and it would captivate John.
I began to hear cats like Dave Brubeck, Miles, Charlie Parker, Coltrane.
He mimicked the piano playing with his table glass. And it was with his growing jazz vinyl collection that he knew badly he wanted to play the piano.
I remember asking my mom for years. She says, Mommy, get me a piano. Get me a piano, please. Finally, about the age of 12, she purchased one. And I sat down and I played, and I figured out the harmonies and all of that. Because, see, I had to find out some other way to talk. Because my stuttering was terrible in my childhood, so I had to find some other way to get it out, to express myself. And so I remember sitting down, pounding on the piano. I say, hey, there's something in here for me.
I learned to play this stuff, in grammar school, and then, chopsticks and all that, and
Stuttered severely in childhood, severely. Couldn't even hardly speak. I had to find some other way to speak. Took to the piano at an early age, and got right into Dave Brubeck and Stan Getz and Bud Shank and Art Pepper and all of those cats, and started playing their piano. I found I could say it on the piano. I found that I could speak much easier and say a lot more through playing music, through singing, through improvising on the piano. I found that it was safe to talk that way.
Soon after, a music teacher of John's heard he was into jazz and suggested Ella Fitzgerald. John later gave a listen to her performing How High the Moon, and hearing her scat was the first time he ever heard any scatting.
I heard Ella Fitzgerald sing a scat sing on a song called How High the Moon when I was about 14. And man, it stole my heart. The scatting gave me a way to stutter freely, like freed stuttering.
It would single-handedly introduce John to the art of scatting, and he would use it to a great extent in due time. However, when he switched to public schooling in the 10th grade, attending Woodrow Wilson High, Paul Ackerman from a band they formed together introduced him to heavy drinking. It would become a vice that played a heavy role in shaping him into becoming the person he ended up being.
I took my first drink about the age of 14, and I said, wow, this feels good. And I can even kind of like talk better. And I can kind of like even hide from myself somewhat. I was destroyed by the time I was 18, emotionally destroyed. I can't tell you how far I had to go to finally say, hey, I'm gonna die if I don't stop.
Despite performing music being a way to attract girls' attention, it would be in high school that he began to take music much more seriously and see it as an outlet to really fully express himself.
After high school, I began to play the piano more. I began to take more of an interest in the piano because I found that as a person who stuttered, I could say it clearer by playing piano. I'm a person who stutters, and so I had to find some way to compensate for my stuttering. So I found that scatting worked real well. See, I can go stuttering and scat singing is real close. Stuttering is a hesitation, trying to get the words out. Scat singing is freed stuttering, free. See, it's great.
Following graduating senior year, he attended East LA College briefly, and he had a band called the John Larkin Quartet. It would be one evening when the saxophonist didn't show up that he first improvised scatting while playing, and it would really win the audience.
I am a jazz piano player, as I said earlier. I also had to sing in the hotels and the clubs. One day my tenor sax player forgot to show up, so I scat sang a solo in his honor and in his place. And I've been scatting ever since then, yeah. Scatting is fun.
Unfortunately, John fell back on bad habits, as he was still heavy drinking and then got into pot by a guy named Tony he met. His mixture of drug problems, losing focus on school, and worsening depressive emotions would lead John to dropping out of college after sophomore year. By 1964, John, at the age of 22, had disappeared into the nitty-gritty of East LA. As soon as he got the money from a menial job he worked, he'd blow it on pot and overtime, speed. He began his career as a jazz musician, often playing in trios, quartets, and quintets at clubs. He'd live in apartments, often with neighbors nearby, which would lead to trouble with how loud he'd often play or practice by himself or with bandmates.
Sometimes it's hard to wake up because I'm in hotels and say, because people say, where's that sound coming from? I used to get, I would have quartets and quintets playing in my front room when I was really into playing jazz, and all we got was police at the door and complaints and complaints and complaints, so.
John later that decade would embrace the hippie lifestyle too for a time. It was during a road trip to try out LSD in 1969 that he first wrote the lyrics to The Misfit, a song that he wrote which was all about himself and the pain he had gone through. He wouldn't have known then the way he'd end up returning to what he wrote at this point in time. Throughout the following years, up to a certain point past the 60s, John struggled with substance abuse. Marijuana and cigarettes remained constant companions, but as years on the road in the backing band of Luther and Graham exposed him to much harder drugs. By the age of 30, John had reached a breaking point. Unable to keep up with rent and without steady work, he moved back in with his parents. The time away from the road and performing allowed him to sober up considerably, but music kept pulling him back in. Before long, he was performing again with local jazz groups, this time with far less drug use and drinking than before. It was during this period that John began finding his voice as a performer. No longer content with just being the pianist, he became increasingly comfortable singing and incorporating scat vocals into his act. In 1978, fellow bandmate Duke McVinney and John Larkin took part in a jam session at Newport Beach that was recorded on tape. As far as we know, these recordings present the earliest existing recordings of John performing. For a time, things seemed to be moving in the right direction, then came Charla. Trying to impress her during a night at the Blah Blah Cafe, John ordered a glass of wine to calm his nerves. Charla would eventually leave his life, but the wine did not. What began as an attempt to loosen up soon became a habit. Not long after, the band split up and John began booking solo Sunday afternoon performances at the San Fernando Valley's winery. The venue proved to be the perfect environment for a growing drinking problem. Week after week, John fell into the same routine: play music, drink wine, chase women, then do it all over again the following weekend. The harder drugs had largely faded into the background, but alcohol was rapidly taking their place. John had become an alcoholic.
And that's when some of the occupational hazards first began to show up. The drinking and the drugs and all of that. My stuttering at that time was still very severe. I had a very troubled childhood because of stuttering. And so he went on and on and on, and I kept playing jazz, and I kept drinking. I played in most of the jazz clubs in California at that time, and my drinking kept increasing and increasing.
One of the many women he pursued during this period was Marcia. Unlike the others, she stayed. The two married in 1979 and would remain together for the next 7 years. The new decade brought new opportunities for John, but not necessarily new habits. In 1980, he began performing aboard cruise ships. During one voyage, he attended his very first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Little did he knew just how much of a massive role Alcoholics Anonymous would play for the rest of his life. But with this first meeting, while it was an early acknowledgement that his drinking had become a serious problem, he was still years away from truly confronting his addictions. That same year, a musician who had played with John several times beforehand, Sam Sluggo Phipps of eventual Oingo Boingo fame, invited him to perform on his debut album, Animal Sounds. Recorded at Phipps' mother's house and released in 1981, it presented one of John's earliest appearances on a properly released record. For a musician who had spent years performing in clubs and bars, it was a small but important milestone, even if his personal life continued to spiral. By this point, alcohol was no longer John's only problem. Marcia had become involved in dealing cocaine, and before long, both of them were using the same drugs they were supposed to be selling. Cocaine, pills, and even angel dust became part of their daily lives. Rather than helping each other recover, the two became trapped in a destructive cycle of addiction. The situation nearly turned fatal when, after days spent high on cocaine, John and Marcia took a speedball. The combination almost killed them both. For John, the experience served as a wake-up call. Looking up to the jazz legends he idolized, John felt it was finally time to record an album of his own. In late 1983, John, through a friend, Joe Farrell, a fellow musician he had played with frequently, was introduced to Bob Harrison and Clark Woodard. They ended up forming the John Larkin Quartet of 1984. In August of 1984, they got to work recording at the studio, at Central Sounds Recorders in downtown Hollywood. In June 1985, they continued recording exactly where they left off with the same energy. Following the recording sessions, however, he and Marcia were evicted from their home and decided to separate in hopes of getting clean. Marcia managed to stay sober, John did not. Instead, his addictions deepened, and he eventually became hooked on meth.
By 1985, I'll cut to the chase, I had nearly demolished myself physically, mentally, and spiritually with the chemicals.
For a brief period, John managed to get clean, but before long, he and Marcia found themselves drawn right back into the same destructive habits that had nearly killed them before. Cocaine, pills, and alcohol once again took over their lives. Amid the chaos, John finally completed his long-held-off album, as in mid-1986, after learning Marcia's friend Beverly owned a dormant jazz label, Transition Records, he purchased the label for $1 from her and released the album himself under the title John Larkin. Marcia designed the cover, and 6 tracks made the final release. On paper, it should have been a triumphant moment. Instead, the album arrived at a time when John was still drowning in addiction. Eventually, he reached the conclusion that years of near misses, overdoses, and failed relationships and broken promises had failed to teach him. He could not continue living this way. On November 14, 1986, John ended both his drug-fueled lifestyle and his troubled marriage with Marcia. As John later put it, he decided to live instead of die.
I played jazz all the way up until the point where I was totally defeated from drugs and alcohol in 1986. The last 2 years I couldn't even play anymore. I put this out there to the public on purpose. The whole purpose of the Scatman project is to try to help people. Because I used to have inferiority complexes. I thought that people were more than me, and I thought I used to be so crazy, but now I'm not.
John began attending Musicians Alcoholics Anonymous far more regularly, going there very often. It would prove to be exactly what he was looking for, as he found people that were like him, and sober too. It was Walter Urban Jr., the stepfather of Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, who had introduced him to this variant of Alcoholics Anonymous, as he had struggled too with addiction. By 1987, John hadn't played in months, and when listening back to his album, it horrified him that he shoved all the remaining copies away in his closet. The record had hardly been released to begin with. A few copies were given out to friends and family, but that was about it. As a result, the record would become a rarity to buy. He did eventually get back to playing music by a gig on a cruise after his friend Jim Miller called him up, and it went well. For the first time in decades, John Larkin was sober through and through. He was 45 years old, and he had no idea that the most successful chapter of his life was still ahead of him. While John was sorted out physically, he still had unresolved business psychologically. Walter Urban Jr. recommended John to join Adult Children of Alcoholics, which he did. he would learn to love and accept himself. Adult children of alcoholics would introduce John to the concept of the inner child. The idea that we all carry the child we once were in the inside. He would end up naming his inner child Paul, after his middle name.
And that's what growing up is. Tune into the child inside of you, everybody. Because we're all kids. We haven't changed a bit. It's all just cover-ups and pretense.
Your childhood is finished when you've become completely smothered by illusion. Outside of that, you're a permanent child. I am childlike. I am not a child because I also have a certain amount of understanding of what it is to be grown up too. But hopefully I've become childlike. There's a big difference between being childish and childlike. Although sometimes I'm pretty childish too, I've got to admit, you know. I want my way now.
Later in 1987, following acquiring a 3 weeks a night job at the Commerce Hyatt in Southeast LA, he was invited one night to attend a birthday party for someone in the program. It would be at this birthday party he would end up meeting Judy McHugh, as the party was at her condo, which she opened for her friend. They began seeing each other regularly, and eventually in 1988, John moved in to live with Judy. Judy would be the anchor, the support John had been searching for all his life. By 1990, while John was earning from intermittent gigs around LA, including North Hollywood's Inginawa Cafe and Judy's modest income filling in the gaps, it ultimately wasn't sustainable and something had to change. And that change would come when John's old friend Jim Miller returned from Germany and told John all about the driving jazz scene there. So John told Judy that night they were going to go to Berlin.
My wife and I decided to come to Europe. We came to Europe in 1991. First city that we hit was Berlin, and it was culture shock to the maximum for the two of us. And we survived it, and we got through. I began to play all that. Start spreading the news. We're leaving today. And indeed, I became a fine hotel pianist.
While for John it went well and was able to adapt, for Judy it did not and couldn't get used to the country. So they went back to LA, and during this time, John got his very first computer. With Judy's encouragement, John pushed harder for work in the area and decided to make a demo tape. He called up his friends drummer Jim Miller and bassist Nils Johnson to record along with him. They booked a session together with engineer Richard Rosen, and over the course of a few intense hours, they got a lot done. John picked out 9 tracks, and the demo tape was titled John Larkin Sings. It would demonstrate his abilities as a jazz pianist and in scat singing. In late 1990, thanks to Judy being able to get the demo into Diane Varga's hands, a well-known jazz performer and promoter, John was able to land more bookings, starting with Linares, a prestigious jazz supper club that would be expecting the full package, as John would have to chat with the crowd too between songs. John was anxious at the idea, as he hadn't developed any confidence yet or had to speak with an audience before, but Judy was able to assure him, telling him that he was enough. So John was able to give it his all. It was able to really spread his name around, and by December 1990, he was on both the LA Times and LA Weekly. He garnered rave reviews and appraisal. Following these experiences at the age of nearly 50, John felt it was time to finally confront what he had spent a whole lifetime avoiding, his stuttering. So he went to the National Stuttering Project to understand it. He became a regular attendee at the LA meetings. While John had steady pay with his 3-night-a-week gig and Judy's modest trust fund, they were still not enough to pay the bills. And after some convincing, Judy got John to reconsider trying out Europe again, and they flew out to Amsterdam in late 1991. Judy was different and prepared this time. John also got his left ear pierced around this period.
I had my ear pierced, but I didn't put in an earring until about halfway into the success of Scatman.
Okay. But you had it pierced 2 years ago.
Pierced in Amsterdam. I had it pierced in Amsterdam.
What motivated you to get it pierced?
My wife.
You see?
Yeah, she's, Johnny, everybody has an earring on here. You got it too. I said, boys don't wear earrings. She says, come on, you know. I said, yes, dear. Squelched me, man.
John was able to get a 6-week run at the Bude Chinese-themed restaurant. He was promoted as a fantastic international singer-pianist that knew plenty of genres when he only mostly knew jazz, which is what led to complaints coming in as he wasn't playing what was expected, which led to John's entire gig being cancelled for not knowing enough pop. After that fallout and failed attempts to get John's demo tape around, they tried Germany again, at a few bars and at the newly opened Traidelberg Hotel outside of Hamburg had ended. They detoured for Spain for a vacation and to expand their options. They met a pianist there who introduced him to Martin Skib, a Martin agent running a Danish agency called Pan, who just happened to be accompanied with his friend Manfred Zaringer. John recorded a new demo tape that was much more watered down and would end up securing John a job aboard a cruise ship, playing straightforward nothing out there music. Judy knew John wasn't happy playing those sort of engagements, so she was determined to get John Larkin Sings the demo tape that really showed what John could do in the right hands, that being Manfred's, as she knew he owned Iceberg Records. And when Manfred came to visit John at the Intercontinental, she was able to convince him to give the demo tape a chance. Manfred gave it a listen on his way back home, and John's scat singing was really what sold Manfred on John's potential as an artist on label.
One day I scat sang for him, and my wife gave him a tape of me scat singing to felonious monks. Well, you needn't. Manfred heard that, and he called me at the hotel that he had me playing in and said, man, we're going to do something for you.
From 1992 to 1993, John shuttled between Los Angeles and Europe working as a grand a week pianist. Manfred tried to pitch him to labels to no avail. Nobody was interested. So came a fateful day in early 1994 at the Montreux Palace Hotel in Switzerland. Manfred visited John and told him ultimately no label wanted to sign him, as despite some lukewarm reception, it went nowhere. It was time to give up on trying to sign John on a jazz label, but then he told him the following.
John, please don't kill me, but I have an idea, and I've already talked to your wife about it. So, I mean, you know, if he talks to my wife, you know, she's going to come in the back door and say, do it.
Manfred's idea was to combine scat rap with current dance music in Europe. He even proposed he could be a professor teaching you how to scat.
My friends call me the professor, and it's because whenever I put on glasses, I tend to take on a professor look like Professor John. My jazz compatriots have called me the professor, and it's cute. I'm not actually a professor, no. But I profess good music, man. Good music, man.
Despite techno being alien territory to John, he felt he had nothing else to lose at that age of 52, and what ultimately drew him the most into doing it was the idea of reaching out to children.
Scatting comes from jazz. I've been a jazz piano player for a long, long time. It's more important for me to try to communicate to people than it is to play jazz. I love to play jazz, but jazz isn't as popular as pop is.
Up to that point, he always played to an adult audience, So if recording a pop song was going to be the way for him to reach out to young people, then he was going to do it all right.
My first experience into the pop scene. Now, I heard that, and of course I started to judge it and put it in these pockets and these categories and all that, but I had learned early on in sobriety to don't judge anything, man. You're not the judge. Somebody else is the judge.
On January 17th, 1994, a 6.7 magnitude Northridge earthquake struck LA in the early morning hours. It frightened John as he frantically called family and friends back home. Judy's LA apartment had partially collapsed, so they had to find somewhere else to live, and the disaster had also jolted them back to LA and to a decision. On March 24th, 1994, to the non-surprise of those who knew them, John and Judy were quietly married in Laughlin, Nevada. Their wedding reception was held at a Mexican restaurant in LA. There weren't many guests, but those in attendance included John's brother Billy, his wife Sharon, their son David, and actor Dick Van Dyke. While in Hamburg, Germany, Manfred Zangringer and his friend Axel Alexander, head of artists and repertoire at BMG Arola Hamburg, had come to an agreement following Axel being won over by Manfred's idea of scat rap. John would sign with Iceberg Records, and BMG RCA would handle all territories outside of the Nordic countries. With the deal done, Axel and his colleague Janine Becker searched for the right dance producers that would be able to blend John's scat singing with contemporary sound. And it would be at last, following the 1994 Popcom Music Trade Show, that they found exactly who they were looking for. A young production duo that were new and making very special music, Tony Catania and Ingo Kays. They met by chance on vacation in Spain, a coincidence as they both lived in Gelsenkirchen, Germany. The pair had done a number of club remixes of other acts, but this would be their first go at making original music. They had an attic apartment where they did the music. They created a demo as they had a copy of John Larkin Sings. Manfred and Axel listened and knew this was the team. John was called up by Manfred and told the Scatman idea was go on August 15, 1994. A couple months later, production began on the song as John got off the train at Essen Station and met up with Ingo. He then also met Tony at an Italian restaurant the three ate at.
BMG Hamburg set me up with these two young kids. Tony, I don't mean kids, they're grown-up people. But their names are Tony Catania and Ingo Kays, and they are brilliant. Tony and Ingo are the architects of Scatman. They're the guys that knows the sampling. They're the guys that know what's going on in the pop world. I don't know. I just found out. I'm just finding out. Manfred Zeringer introducing me to BMG and Eckhart and all the people there, and Tony Catania and all of us, the four of us all coming into one place at one time. I don't believe there's coincidences. I think there's something else at play here that's making all of this happen. Sometimes I can sense it. I don't know. I don't mean to sound abstract.
They began work on the Scatman single the next day in the morning. John was worried if the world finds out he stutters, and it was from the advice of his wife Judy that he makes this first song all about his stuttering.
When I composed the text to that song, I turned to my wife and I said, honey, how am I going to do it? How am I going to go on to television and stutter? Yeah. She says, talk about it. And I says, well, okay. I wrote all of the text to the first single, all about stuttering, and it turned out to be a number one hit all over the world. And I think it's because kids need to hear that. Sure. I think the kids need to know we've all got problems, and there isn't any point in hiding them anymore. So, yeah.
It's only because Scatman stutters that Scatman is happening. If you've heard the words to Scatman, Part of the words are, everybody's saying that the Scatman stutters but doesn't ever stutter when he sings. But what you don't know, I'm going to tell you right now, that the stutter and the scat are the same thing. And they actually are.
He wrote lots of lyrics, including some from the Misfit.
Put some rap down that I had put out on the Joe Farrell album earlier years.
While you're still sleeping, the saints are still weeping, 'cause things you call dead haven't yet had the chance to be born. It's while you're still sleeping, the saints are still weeping, 'cause things you call dead haven't yet had the chance to be born.
I went into the studio. They gave me an F minor beat, and that's all I had. Just that beat. I sat down and I scat sang for like 4 hours straight. Every imaginable phrase, and on and on and on and on. Every sound imaginable.
John had done his vocals in a few days, and after he left for LA by the end of October 1994, the two got to work for many days until they were done. For Ingo and Tony, it took a lot of work to really get the sound right, to have a proper jazz melody along with the techno.
My music is an attempt to put scat singing in with the dance music and all of that. It's fun. It's a brand new concept to me. I'm a jazz piano player, man, and like all of a sudden to be putting scat singing into scat rap, it's like a whole new project. I'm having a ball.
But it all came together in the end.
2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they sent me a tape, and it was Scatman. I'm the Scatman! And it blew my mind.
November 30th was when the single came out in Germany. It was rushed out and purposely kept John off the cover. John took the advance from the single and bought a set of dentures as his teeth were a wreck from all the years spent smoking tobacco, weed, and doing hard drugs. In the middle of December 1994, BMG flew John out to London to shoot the music video. There was a hesitation to present John front and center, as at the time, they weren't sure on how people would react to him being the Scatman, how they'd react to his age and looks. It's the reason why, in the first place, he was left off the cover. The music video was done fairly cheap and all about anyone enjoying the Scatman. It was rushed into post-production, and with how little time they had, the music video didn't even get color graded, which is what led to it getting that distinct black and white look it's known for.
I like that I could just stand up there and feel any way I felt and say, scoop, ski, scoop. It's my first video. I thought it came out fantastic, but there are people out there who've seen thousands of them, so I don't know, actually. I thought it was shot with a lot of elegance.
The song at first, performance-wise, was real slow. Hardly any play or notice. It wasn't until a magazine in Germany spoke about it in January 1995 that it began to climb the charts.
I never dreamed the Scatman would be on the top 10 or top 20 of any country anywhere, you know. And 5th week, 6th week, it entered the charts in Germany. It was number 90 something, and I flipped out. I says, "You mean I am on a chart as a pop star?" I says, "Oh man, it's not going to get any better than this. Can't get any better." 7th week, 8th week, number 60. I says, "Oh man, it can't get any better than this." Number 40. Can't get. Oh, this is it. Then it went into the top 20, and I couldn't believe it. Top 10, top 5. It stayed at number 2 for like 10 weeks, something like that. I don't know the exact amount of weeks. It was only, it didn't go into number 1 because at that time, Chariots of Fire by Vangelis was dominating the charts everywhere because of some picture, I think, that had come out, which I haven't seen. So it stayed there, and my God, all of a sudden it went gold. All of a sudden it went platinum. Jesus, it did. It went from 100 to 80. I mean, I watched it week by week, and I said, well, it's not going to go any higher. And then it just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. The kids loved it, and I said, well, okay. Here I am.
After the first music video, it was time for John and Axel Alexander to figure out how the Scatman persona should look in public. And it all came naturally to John. He had a fair idea of his image and knew he wanted to model the persona after a jazz cat from the 50s. So came the fedora and suit. It was a bit funny for those that knew him closely, as all his life he mainly wore jeans and shirts. John wearing a suit was a rarity. And so the photo shoot began that month in January 1995. Right beforehand, he had finally beaten his last addiction, and that was with cigarettes. John's first public performance had went well, and it was when they got the message that everyone liked John for John.
I'm shocked. Really? I didn't expect this. I thought it would be great if we could get into the top 20. And all of a sudden, kids of all ages are buying Scatman. And I'll tell you why I think it seems to be happening. Scatman is saying positive. See, Scatman as a person is a person that stutters. I stutter, and I've had a hard time accepting that for years and years and years. Before Scatman came out, I said, I gotta put the stuttering out there. I gotta tell the world, if I can stutter and overcome being ashamed of being a person that stutters, maybe I can help people.
The music video around this time started being put into heavy rotation on Germany's Viva music channel. As it got played, the story behind it spread, so it climbed the charts in Germany and in Nordic countries. John could be more happier, reaching out to the youth now as the interviews and press came in. John's age, his looks, and unfiltered sincerity was what won everyone over. He had learned to embrace stuttering and be okay with stuttering.
All my life, I've done everything except allow myself to stutter. Now I'm at the point where it's like, I could have a heart attack trying not to stutter. With all that control, it would be like holding a beach ball under the water. You know, when you hit 50 years old, you can't hold a beach ball under the water anymore. Pretty soon the real stuff shows. So I've given myself permission to go ahead and stutter. Maybe I can help somebody.
I am just going to go ahead and stutter. Everybody's got problems. So what? It got so much easier. I felt like 200 pounds was taken off my back, you know, so it's been good.
Well, in one of your songs, it might have been actually the Scatman, where everybody stutters one way or the other, so check out my message to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was hiding out for years. For years, man. I was so ashamed that I stuttered, man. And you know, I would fight with the kids in my childhood because they'd make fun of me and all that. And I think that's essentially what I'm trying to give to the kids today. I'm trying to tell them that maybe your greatest problem can be a source of strength.
Although that was not to say John was safe from critics, as some doubted the legitimacy of him really being a stutterer.
When I try to sing the words, I think it comes out from the creative side of my brain. I think when I try to speak, it comes out the intellectual side. The intellectual part of me, or at least the verbal part of the intellectual part of me, tends to stutter. God doesn't make junk. Why should I be ashamed of the fact that I stutter?
By February 1995, Manfred already asked Ingo and Tony to lay the groundwork for the next single and an album. When John was on break and back home in LA, he took the time to watch MTV, and it was seeing gangsta rap songs that really shook him to his core.
I don't think music needs to be mean anymore. Revolution. Kill a cop. I don't think it needs to be that. Because if you kill anybody or anything, you inherit the very violence that you kill for.
It was overly negative music that he felt only brought people down, songs that he thought didn't help matters and only made things worse. So he wanted to bring positivity with the first Scatman John album.
The whole Scatman project is about something positive. It's part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Scatman writes all of his own words, and the words are intended to pick certain social situations and offer a positive way to handle them.
When we can hear some new material from Scatman?
Well, Scatman has a follow-up single coming out. It's called Scatman's World. Listen to the words, very positive. It should be out shortly. As soon as Scatman becomes a fallen star from his first single,
No.
the Scatman 2 will follow up and come out.
He had a real clear idea on what he wanted the album to be. He knew exactly what he wanted to write about lyrically. He took the 12th step of Alcoholics Anonymous to his heart, and that was to carry the message of recovery to other alcoholics.
I was a mess until 1986 when I decided to get some help and I straightened out. And I found out these things about myself, which I'm just trying to pass on. Yeah.
John wanted to tip his fedora to the program without being over-candid to keep the anonymous part of Alcoholics Anonymous, so he wore a golden pendant of the symbol to the program. It was a triangle within a circle. The circle stood for the world, and the triangle stood for the program's 3 pillars: recovery, unity, and service. He wore any time he was out in the public, in photo shoots, and in music videos. His song for the album, Time Take Your Time, even makes references to the program, hidden in plain sight.
Hey Tommy, looking good, got a tan, feeling better, heard you reading chapter 5, you know how to stay alive. Every morning at your knees, 90 meetings, 90 days, to share, we care, check it out, Tommy.
John and the architects got to work on the album at the hotel they were staying at. John had figured out what he had wanted to say and who needed to hear it. He wanted to reach out to the kids that felt like outsiders or overlooked.
I don't know if it's the same thing today, but when I grew up, I was taught it isn't who I am, it's what I do. I am not who I am, that doesn't matter. And that is wrong. As soon as I found out that I'm enough, just the way I am, was the very same day I wanted to do something with my life. But when I don't know who I am and I'm stuck in confusion and problems, I have to do something then to survive.
He knew the world wasn't always safe, so he wanted to create a sanctuary just for them. Scatland.
In Scatman's world, I tried to paint a picture of how I think the world should be, where peace is happening, where there's one world, one people, everybody trusts everybody, you don't have to be afraid. I think Scatman's World is the song that I got to say where I'm at.
Ingo and Tony had the opening line, "I'm calling up from Scatland, I'm calling up from Scatman's World" outlined, and the rest came from John. The symbiosis that was there when they did Scatman was as prevalent as ever with their first album together. The 3 played real instrumentation and also computer-edited sounds. It took John a while to get an understanding of how Eurobeat works. John's lyrics were all what John wanted to talk about, from a love song to his wife titled Only You, to a song about a homeless girl he'd seen in a distance from time to time in his area, titled Quiet Desperation. John would also, for the first time as the Scatman, express his appreciation for jazz by a song titled Hi Louis, which served as a tribute to Louis Armstrong. But the final track came, and as the Germans say, it has to be a ballad. Song of Scatland was born, and it became John's favorite song on the whole album.
Everybody's from Scatman's World. The problem is that some of us forgot about Scatman's World. I call it Scatman's World. It's a place that I had to create
to be able to remind myself and everyone else that peace is possible. So I create the image of Scatland. Scatland is a place where we don't have to have police. We don't have to have laws because all of us are conforming to the laws of the universe instead of conforming to man-made laws. Everybody trusts everyone in Scatland. Everybody understands everyone in Scatland. We're all in touch with our sixth sense in Scatland.
Originally, the language of Scatland, Scattish referred to stuttering, but due to the lyrics not being able to fit within the verses, it was rewritten to those who spoke in a tongue of their own, therefore making the song connect with more people.
We put out a song called Song of Scatland in Germany, and it was slow, and it was a song that talked all about Scatland. Scatland is that secret and magical place in everyone's heart where there's peace and happiness, where you trust everyone, there isn't any hate and all that. And I tried to introduce that concept in that song. The first single talked about Scatman. The second single talked about Scatman's world. Yeah. The third single tried to describe Scatman's world. And I got kids emailing me about where is Scatland, what is Scatland, and I tell them that Scatland is between your deepest dreams and your warmest wishes. And and it's in your heart. All you gotta do is try to love a little bit.
And just like that, the album was complete. John was able to discuss everything he had wanted to with his album. It was essentially his piece on the world, and it was now time to film a music video for the first single. And just like the original music video, it was shot in London. The budget was still fairly low, so they had to work with the surroundings of the city. It was intentionally filmed much more colorfully, but there are still moments shot in black and white as a nod to the original music video that started it all. With the Scatman's World single and album underway, things were looking up for John, and on break, the royalties had finally started coming in, so they now had the money to buy a home, which he and his wife Judy did. They moved to a 4-bedroom home in Studio City tucked in the greenery of Fryman Canyon. The secluded nature of the home was what won him and Judy over. So for the first time, John owned a home rather than renting one.
So Judy, how does it feel to be married to such a famous man?
Oh, well, I don't know about famous, but we have a wonderful time.
Yeah.
We're like a couple of kids in a candy store.
How long have you been together?
We've been together almost 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have such a wonderful house.
Oh,
I have only seen these houses in American magazines.
But there was little time to settle in, as John had an important engagement, the National Stuttering Project's 1995 convention in San Diego, which he went. He agreed to be there when he was an unknown jazz pianist, but he was now known alright.
So I'm the Scatman. And I stutter, and I never have quite known what to do about that. Until quite recently. And all of a sudden, I'll pop Scatman. It sold 1,500,000 copies. It's still the top selling single in Europe, all of Europe. And it's coming out over here. I've gotten a chance to do a lot of TV, guys. I've got a chance to do a lot of interviews. I've really gotten, you've got to figure all those copies sold out there. There's some stutterers out there who hear it, that if the Scatman can do it, so can you. That maybe our problem of stuttering has become the greatest asset that we have. Maybe indeed it can become a source of strength to not only overcome the shame of stuttering, but overcome every other obstacle holding us back. For me, by God, it has.
Daniel Kramer had also been in attendance there that day. In July 1995, the Scatman's World single, with John on the cover this time around, became a #1 hit across Germany, France, and Belgium. It cracked the top 5 chart across Europe. The music video played everywhere, including MTV, Viva, and The Box. MTV Europe nominated Scatman John for Best Male Artist of 1995, placing him shoulder to shoulder with Michael Jackson, Dr. Dre, Neil Young, and Lenny Kravitz. He was on the air, partaking in interviews, and even appeared on MTV's Most Wanted.
What's on your stereo?
On my stereo?
That's cutest.
Purple Rain by Prince.
Artist formerly known as Prince.
Formerly known, he is now Symbol.
Is he?
I think so.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that anyway. I don't know. I don't watch TV.
We don't care, do we, what he's called? Really?
No, actually.
So you still listen to the artist Prince?
Yeah, Prince is great, man. Great guitar player, but he ought to play more. He should play more. I don't hear him play enough.
Mind you, he releases an album every week, doesn't he?
I think he does, yeah.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but boy, he can sure put on a great show, I'll tell you.
A critique he got from journalists was that he betrayed jazz, that he sold out jazz.
For me, everything is jazz. Pop is jazz. Rock is jazz. Salsa is jazz. Because it's all variations of the same thing. Now, I could take that beat, I could turn it into salsa, rock, jazz, I could turn it into everything. So my good fortune is that there is no separation for me from a creative point of view. I have become a so-called pop star. I need to put something out there. I don't need to be a pop star. I know who I am as a person, but I do need to communicate to people, especially to kids. All music is jazz. Jazz is all music. Because, man, it's something very simple, very basic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. All music you hear is variations of 1, 2, 3, 4. It all depends. Do you mean what you're saying in your music? Does it have heart? Because it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. See, you know, all you got to do is mean it. Find sincerity in yourself and express it any way that you can.
He was even opening up about what he thinks about other pop artists.
Oh, well, I told you Coltrane. Of course, there's Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, the Beatles. Everybody's been touched by them. I have. Oh, God. Probably everyone I've heard who I've enjoyed has taught me something. All of them, all the jazz players. Yeah. I like Prince. I like Elton John. I've only come on the pop scene. I only know a few of the pop people. I like Annie Lennox. I think she's great. I think there's something very special about her. There's a great piano player out there. He's a jazz player. Kenny Kirkland, great piano player.
The single had already went gold and platinum.
Wasn't Germany, you recorded a lot of your songs there, right?
I first came out in Germany, yeah. Scatman came out in Germany. He went into France, into Austria, into Switzerland, and then he spread into the Baltic countries, and then Asia, then South America, and then the moon.
Iceberg Records was in overdrive, as they hadn't even had the time to consider signing new artists and had to handle all the Scatman requests. Many had to be rejected, however. One high-profile collaboration that John did accept was the Coca-Cola can with his image and signature to benefit Nordos Robbins, a charity for music therapy children. Something other musical legends, the likes of David Bowie and Phil Collins, partook in. Tucked in every copy of Scatman's World was the blueprints for Scatland. It was written down within the booklet.
Scatland is a place of beauty, and I need a sense of hope in today's world, and I found peace inside of me by overcoming my problems, by finding out who I am, by finding out who I'm not. I'm an older man now. It's taken me a long time.
peace is possible. Scatland is a place of peace. It's located between your deepest dreams and your warmest wishes. And it's a place for all of the kids to find happiness in. Yeah. Hope that makes sense.
The Scatman's World album had cleared 2 million copies. The debut Scatman single, another 2 million. And the Scatman's World single, over 1 million. During all this, unfortunately, however, Scatman hadn't been successful in America.
I had to come to Europe. I had to go someplace to find a career. I don't think America takes care of its jazz artists as well as it could. There, I said it. I love my country. I think America is young, however. I think it's a teenager compared to other countries. America, please don't hate me, but will you please take care of your artists? I had to come over here to find a career. I found a career. I found that people in Europe are hearing me, and now because they're hearing me all over here, now I'm going to be released over in America. And it's perfectly okay because I knew somewhere, sometime I would find an audience to hear me.
They released the Scatman single in August and it barely charted. Not even cracking the top 50. It was number 60. They tried to fix it. John, Ingo, and Tony flew to LA's Enterprise Studios and tried to rework Scatman's World with some backing female singers and recorded a whole new song titled Hey You to make a much more American sounding album. It unfortunately didn't work. As a month later, Scatman vanished from the charts, killing any plans for a US release of the Scatman's World album. Hey You would later be remixed into U-Turn the next year on the second album.
Scatman John is an international phenomenon, except in every major country in the world, especially Japan. But we have not fully come out here yet. The only song that's come out here so far is the first single, Scatman. Sure. I'm the Scatman! That's the only song. The album hasn't come out, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's politics or whatever the heck is happening. Right now, currently, the album is placed with Arista.
Okay.
We may be coming out on that label here. I don't know. But, I'm so involved in that. Why isn't it out here? Why? I'm in my own home country. Why isn't it out here? I've stopped becoming attached to all of that. Let the winds blow the way they blow. If it comes out here, as it should, because it's really positive, beautiful stuff. And it's for kids. I mean, I got something positive.
How long does politics continue? Bruce, I wish I could tell you. There's so much stuff, needless nonsense that doesn't need to be going on in the record business. There are so many great acts that are overlooked, and it's because the music business is not run by musicians. It's run by people that really don't know sometimes.
Sure.
I spent time, to be honest, I was angry for a period because I was Artist of the Year in Asia, and in Europe, and I come here, and it's like they forgot about me. It's like, perfectly cool. I can quit now. I've got all the cash I need, but that isn't the point.
Right.
The point is that I want to put out something positive to kids, and the albums were overlooked. They weren't put out.
While John was disappointed, he did feel in some ways he got the best of both worlds, being a megastar abroad and unknown at home, as John liked his anonymity. Another unfortunate misfire came in December 1995 when Song of Scatland was released as a single for the Christmas season. While it did chart at first, it faded pretty quickly and became a rare misstep in an otherwise unstoppable run. It would also spawn a music video, albeit there isn't as much information regarding the making of it like there is with Scatman and Scatman's World. So 1995 drew to a close, and he got one last fax from Iceberg stating, that he was the top male artist in all of Europe? Michael Jackson came second.
In 1996, I was International Artist of the Year in Japan. I think in many countries, but for sure in Japan. Yeah, I would have loved to have had a chance to talk to Mama Heiko. He was staying in the same hotel I was in, but he was so heavily under bodyguard and all that I couldn't contact him.
We'll just have to set that up.
Yeah.
But there was no time to celebrate, as it was now time for Scatman John to go on tour. John had only two stipulations. There had to be a saxophone player and an oxygen tank, as John unfortunately had COPD, a progressive incurable lung disease that made it harder and harder to breathe. Years of tobacco, weed, and hard drugs had eaten away at his breath. It made recording the Scatman's World album arduous, but he was able to persevere. Now came a much harder challenge, which was to perform live on tour. The tour manager Ulrich Hinsich, who had handled John's 1995 promo events, and now in January 1996 tasked with a full-scale tour spanning 2 continents and 10 countries with barely a pause between gigs. The oxygen, Ulrich knew, was not optional and a necessity. As he put it, he couldn't do 75 minutes without it, or even 2 times 45 minutes. That month saw John rehearse with a backing band formed by bass player Steve Brezik, that saw 2 more Steves on sax and drums, Steve Hamilton and Steve Williams, plus keyboardist Team Best and guitarist Paul Dunn. As they toured across Europe, they would face an issue of crowd control. As John was so popular, teenagers were asking for his autograph and crowds were formed around him. So John and Ulrich worked out a deal where Ulrich would pull him away when it was too much for John to sign. Then came the biggest leg of the tour, which was in Japan. Nothing could have ever prepared John for the massive crowd awaiting him in the country. Japan had initially refused to buy into the Scatman craze at first, as BMG Tokyo wasn't convinced, as they wrongfully assumed the song wouldn't appeal to Japanese people. Manfred, however, was able to convince them. He sang the hook Skidi Be Bapudope and proved to them that the song is in Scottish and not English. That was how Japan was convinced to join in, and none of them in that room would have known how massive Scatman John would become in the country, as seen when John visited the country for his tour. His performance went great and everyone loved John.
Well, I'll tell you, I just got through playing a concert tour of Tokyo. That was like fantastic, and it was like, I can't tell you what a beautiful feeling it is to see these kids waiting to hear me sing. You can hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Scatman John by then had become one of the best-selling foreign artists in Japan of all time. His album by then sold 1 million in Japan. There was even an exclusive extended play released only for Japan in December 1995 titled Scat Paradise, which featured Jazzology and the US remix of Scatman's World and Hey You from the faded US version of the Scatman's World album. Japan was the country that asked John the most for performances, to the point that John had to eventually learn how to say no.
They were laying 18-hour days on me, 7 days per week, and yeah, I had to grow up real fast. I had to learn to say no. What part of the word no do you not understand? You know, it's important stuff. You do have to take care of yourself.
However, he did show interest in the fact they'd like to see him perform jazz.
Japan has been asking me for some time that as soon as Scatman, the pop star, slows down there, they want to put me out as the jazz artist I am. I got to tell you, kids, I've only been a pop star for 3 years, and I became a pop star at 52. Guess what I was doing in my early years? Man, I was playing piano. I was into John Coltrane, Miles Davis, all of these people. I also sing, too. I sing the standards, and I might put out an album of standards. Who knows?
I kind of miss the club scene. As soon as Scatman John slows down, and it's inevitably going to come to an end, you know where I'm going to be, baby. I'm going to be playing the jazz clubs. playing the old jazz clubs.
Japan was in full Scatmania drive with comedian Kato Cha covering Scatman, and even Ultraman did a cover of the song too. John later accumulated over 50 TV show appearances, radio shows, interviews just for the country. Around the time John was touring in Japan, in February 1996 saw the final single to Scatman's World released only there in Japan, and that being Only You. It featured Sing Now as the other half to the single, along with 2 other songs. His debut album still remains the 8th most best-selling foreign album of all time in Japan. Off the road during his tour in Japan that same month, John wrote, sang, and recorded a jingle for Glico's Puchapurin called Pre Scat. He starred in the ad. Then, when he later went back to LA, he recorded another jingle called Susu Supakire for Kenibu Cosmetics, which meant super beautiful. The ad co-starred actress Hanama Suzuku. He also recorded a music video for the song, which would mark the 4th music video John ever did.
Super Kitty. That song was actually a commercial for the Japanese.
A commercial?
It was a cosmetic commercial, yeah.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and they turned it into a top 40 song. I said, okay, cool, man.
The same day that they were recording the music video would be when he played a stripped-down acoustic version of Love Me Tender that later ended up on the single as a bonus track. As both Pre Scat and Susu Supakire were later released in March as proper singles, both were hits, totaling over 200,000 copies sold. On his 54th birthday in March 13th, 1996, he had learned he'd surpassed 6 million sales worldwide. A popularity poll ranked him the 7th most famous person in Japan. With the spring, he was due to begin work on his 2nd album that month in Bautrop, but instead, John was on a well-deserved break. He had owned the new home for 6 months by then, but been so occupied with touring, press, and promoting that it all still felt new to him. Despite John and Judy becoming sudden millionaires, it didn't really change their lifestyles, as they were still the same people as before. John didn't know what to do with the money. He bought the basic things like a black Cadillac Eldorado and a laptop, as John was an early adopter of the internet. He racked up so much time on dial-up internet that his label eventually made him pay his own phone bills. He'd check out fan sites all about him.
You actually do have a website of your own, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I've come to find there's about 6 7 of them now. There's 7 of them. France has one, England has one. I also have one. There's been 2 websites, one created by a guy named Simon Kruzinski. And
you can find Scatman songs on the web that people have taken the time, they call them MIDI files in this case, but people have taken the time to re-record your songs and stick them, you know, with little Casio keyboards in there, dinking and clicking in the background. It's pretty funny.
I love it.
Yeah, so we've got one of those coming up. And you never know where you're going to find it. You know, we were talking about the internet a while back. Here's one of these... There's one of these MIDI files. Listen to this thing. We'll be back in a moment on Hollywood Live. Somebody giving their little Casio work out there, man. Now that's one of, you know, you can just dial you up and say, okay, I have you know, this and that song by the Scatman, and here's what I've done with it. And people are so into your music that they're actually, you know, trying to sequence it into their little computers on their keyboards and just fool with it.
Isn't it a thrill? I love it. I appreciate all of it. I heard one that came out of India, and it was like they had sitars on it. It was the cutest thing I ever heard. It was like, yeah. So anyhow,
John kept touch with stuttering organizations, and when asked if his music could be used, his answer was always an enthusiastic yes, every time. He told Iceberg and BMG to not charge. John felt, despite the fame, things were not complete, particularly how stuttering was still misunderstood like in his childhood. John was able to own his stuttering and be okay with it. John wanted to fulfill a purpose, and he knew where his money had to go, and began forming the plans for Scatland Foundation.
I want to do something positive with all the success of the Scatman project. I want to do something positive. I'm a person who stutters. I've started the Scatman Foundation to help people who stutter in every way. The World Stuttering Communities, in every way. I've had great success because I stutter. It gave me confidence as soon as I began to own it. And I want to try to give something back to people. Especially people who stutter, because I'm a person who stutters. But don't tell anybody.
We had the first album. I had the first album to learn from. Everybody's going to sit here and say, the second album is much better than the first album. That's what you're expecting to hear, right? Well, the point is that it is.
The second album was then going to be titled Journey of Fantasy and was due to begin work in April 1996 at Bottrop. It was to be themed as a trip across the world, with each track drawing from different cultural and musical influences. Remnants of this concept would later be seen in the final album, and later even in the third album, which at some point was also going to be titled Journey of Fantasy. When John made it to Bottrop, where he was to record the second album, he found Tony Catania and Ingo Kays had set up a wholly new 2-studio setup for recording vocals and for recording music respectively. John would later write an update to the Scatman website. As following a massive hoarding pile of fan mail he found at a P.O. box he set up, he felt that ultimately he couldn't be personal with every one of his fans, but the best he could do is make music that will address all of them together collectively.
And the young people of all ages, but the young people are taking an interest in scat singing. I think that's marvelous. I think that's just great, because it sure is a happy art form. Isn't that happy? Yeah, man. Yeah.
John was excited by the idea of being able to further share his love for jazz with kids, as he previously did in Scat Paradise with a song that named every favorite jazz musician of his titled Jazzology. A new song he had in the works was then titled Jazz Jam, a tribute song to Louis Armstrong.
I'm giving kids a little piece of jazz. as a flower, one petal at a time. Kids heard ski, ba 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 do, and they liked it. I mean, I'm not here to sell jazz, but being a jazz artist as I am, it can't help but come out.
As the album took shape across months recording the album, he kept a childlike wonder that was envisioned, but recorded songs that were more so what he wanted to explore.
There's a song on it called Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Mind. It's a song that I wrote for politicians. Did I say that? Okay. It's a song I wrote for politicians, man. You know, for people who aren't in touch with what's going on in the world, who are up there claiming to be in touch. Great text on it. There's a song on the album called Scat Music, where I have a chance to stretch out on my scatting. It's got a trumpet in it, it's got a tenor in it, man. It's good stuff. As a matter of fact, scat's where it's at, scat's where it's at, scat's where it's at.
John put plenty of thought with this album, even if it would drop the concept album aspects in favor of being an all-around great album. Unfortunately, however, John did face struggle making the album, as after the first 3 weeks, he had to take a pause on the album to go on a promotional circuit once more and promote in Japan.
You heard
that you know Speed really well, the girl.
Oh, Speed. God, aren't they talented?
すごい才能ありますよね、皆さんね。
How old are those
皆
girls?
さん何歳ぐらいなんですか？13.5歳。
13.5ぐらいですか。
13.5 is the average age.
13.5.
13.5ですか。
Oh,
すごいですね。
oh my goodness.
こちらは
びっくりしちゃいました。You're 55 at the moment?
54?
54 歳
They're only,
です。
let's see, 13 times 4. I'm as old as all 4 of them put together.
みんな4人合わせた年齢ですね、私はね。それではこの2曲続けてお聞き。
え、あれ閉まってるよ。
あれピピ
もうないよ。
あいつの間に
だって。
プレゼントくれ
いやまあ。
Don't be sad, Lan Lan, because I have a present for you and for everybody out there in a little while.
え
Yeah.
本当
Yes.
プレゼントくれるんですキャットマンがやったやったよしじゃあ宇宙機になったとこでみんなの大集団どんどん送ってね待ってるよバイバイ
Then in May, he was stressed, and for a time, they tried to record the album at John's home before the architects went back to Bottrop in their fancier studio to begin mixing. The biggest issue with the album, however, will come down to interference. Whereas the first album had zero expectations and was therefore allowed to flourish and reach completion at a steady pace, this second album would be handed down and down by high expectations, calls, chord memos, faxes, and uninvited visitors interrupting the mixing process. When John found out, he was furious.
There was such enormous pressure after the first album because it sold like 10 million albums and singles all over. And so all of a sudden everybody became a Scatman expert. And everybody had to put their input into the second album. And it was like everybody got their souls broken trying to make this second album. And I mean, I was the one, I got angry. They were all in the studio when we were trying to make the second album. And I just told them, will you guys get out of here? Let us make the music, please. You know?
That's unbelievable.
We whipped that album out because it flowed.
Yeah.
It just came out, yeah.
That's amazing.
They would create a track, I would put words to it. Beautiful. The actual recording took about 22 days. Now, the mixing and all of that of course, takes time. But to actually put the album down, yeah, it was quick. Man. Because it was natural.
In August, John returned to the studio to record and cut one of the album's final tracks, a cover of Queen's The Invisible Man. The cover found its way onto a cover album titled Queen Dance Tracks 1, released in December 1996. It featured other Eurodance artists covering various Queen songs, but the final track, We Are the Champions, featured John as a supporting singer.
Just champion!
The song Jazz Jam evolved and was retitled along with the album to Everybody Jam. It became the title track. It was built around constructed conversation between John and Louis. It expressed John's appreciation for jazz, and as he felt, would make for a great introduction to many of the art of jazz.
There's a single called Everybody Jam. One more piece of a pedal to the kids. They get to hear Louis Armstrong take a jazz solo on the trumpet. It's Louis playing.
Well, you know, and it was cool how you were able to incorporate the Jenny, or I was Jenny.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, the trumpet solo. You know, that's kind of, it's a jazz solo. The guy was a jazz musician.
That is an actual solo by Satchmo.
What?
That is an actual solo by Satchmo. I had the opportunity to work with some very professional producers in Germany. They were able to take that solo off of the Hen album and fit it right into the exact chord line of Everybody Jam. That is actually Satchmo talking too. Hey, Louis! Yeah! That's actually Satchmo. Yeah.
I had no. See, I was just figuring, oh, you found a sound like guy and a real hot musician.
No. It was him. And that was him playing the trumpet also.
That solo was actually him.
We were able to take a solo, stretch the solo out, and it fit the chord line perfectly. Oh, I loved making his song.
That's incredible.
Well, he was a powerful influence on my childhood.
New Orleans, beautiful city. We had to shoot here. We had to shoot here because the spirit of Satchmo came from here. In our video, we tried to capture that spirit of Satchmo.
Before going down to Louisiana to shoot the music video, John took a stop in Washington, D.C. to accept the Annie Glenn Award. It's a prestigious award that honors those who spread public awareness of communication disorders. It was an award that John felt the most proud of out of any award he ever earned, always pointing to it as the one he felt was the most special to him.
The good fortune is that we had an opportunity to work with a very professional company. They really gave the impression that this place was really like Broadway, New York.
The music video's budget was backed by BMG and billed at a full $200,000. It was set to be Scatman John's thrust in the spotlight once more.
To have the opportunity to present Louis Armstrong to people who may not have heard him, to kids who may not have heard him, is an honor. A beauty queen, oh my God, my wife was keeping an eye on me when she walked by, believe me, I'll tell you, yeah.
This is fantastic.
Satchmo and New Orleans are synonymous. Louis came from here. We had the opportunity to shoot some shots over in the projects where the real soul of the black people are, man. And it was really great. We had these children all around us. A picture of me singing the song up to Louis in heaven. That was a great shot. The party here, the parade here, they got it all, man.
Timing had its funny ways that day, as John's other nephew, Steven, just happened to be in the area, starting at his first job after grad school, that when visiting the set, he found his way into the music video.
My nephew, Steven, he's... I get excited over, I love that kid.
He called me up and said,
"Hey Steve, come on over, man, you gotta be in this.
Let's get some family involved, and so he said, let's get the Larkins involved, and so I showed up."
He's the guy with all the color on his face, and all the pretty colors all over. I think it really blew his mind, you know?
I'm actually a seismologist, so I don't do anything in the arts at all. I'm a geek, I'm a scientist.
For the music video, they were able to get a great look-alike to play Louis Armstrong.
He was a good look-alike.
My jaw's big and my eyes big to look like Louis Armstrong. I have to be real animated when I do it.
Louis was an emotional man. He was, yeah. And he wasn't conservative. He would show it.
I'm not a trumpet player. I'm a school teacher.
To be perfectly honest, of all of them, this one was the most fun. I've never had a time quite like this. But it's over now. Today is today on this average, ordinary street. It's amazing, man.
Everybody Jam marked Scatman John's 5th music video, and unbeknownst to him, would ultimately become the final music video he ever did for any of his songs. It was now coming up soon enough 10 entire years since John had become sober in November. And as a result, John's mind turned to deeper things. He had already been calling his audience children of all ages by then, and was being more honest about himself in interviews. John was promoting as ever about the album and its lead single, gushing every moment about how it was all about Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong, the third single had to present my jazz roots.
Yeah, sure.
Armstrong really had a powerful influence on me in my childhood. I would see his smiling face come on the camera and he'd say, "Let the world be your umbrella." And I was unhappy in my childhood because I stuttered so bad and I was always blue, and he would come on, he just cheered me up. So he injected me with scatting at a very early age.
And it's great. You're teaching a whole new audience.
Oh, isn't it wonderful? God, I'm so lucky here.
What a wonderful world.
But yeah, Bruce.
It's a tribute to Louis. This whole single is it's about Satchmo. He gave me the seed of Scatman. I'd see a smiling face, yassa, zassa, zassa. I needed an identity early in my childhood. I stuttered, man. It was traumatic. And he just come along and says, "Lassie, Ozzy, let a smile be your umbrella," you know.
The single and album both arrived in November after such build-up and released in a similar time frame, just like the original Scatman single that started it all. The album's release in Japan got a special treatment as it came with 5 bonus tracks, featuring 2 brand new songs, Papo Papo Pay and I'm Free, but also 3 previously released songs, Pre Pre Scat, Susu Supakire, and Jazzology, making it a very ultimate package for any listener of Scatman John. 1997 had arrived, and it started out good and bad. The Scatland Foundation finally opened as a non-profit organization.
Tell us about the foundation. You just mentioned that briefly.
Yes, I started a foundation called the Scatland Foundation to serve the worldwide needs of people who stutter. Believe it or not, there are 50 million of us.
That's a lot of people.
And our aim is to create self-help groups in Pakistan, in India, in the Baltic countries, and we're trying to get all of the kids who have speech problems to come out of hiding, to not be alone anymore. So what the organization is trying to do is to create positiveness for people who stutter.
Sure.
And I could go on and on, but essentially it's to try to help. Yeah.
Is there a number, a website, something people can dial up and get more info, something like that?
Oh my goodness, I should have brought it with me. I don't have it. It's on the website if you look under Yahoo and call up the Scatland Foundation, it'll pop up for you.
You know, I think probably that'll work too for a lot of the other, Netscape and AOL NetFind. A lot of the search engines will probably bring that up. Well, that's cool.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
But the Everybody Jam single was struggling, except in the Czech Republic, where it was climbing towards #1 and cracked the top 10 in Hungary. In Japan, the album had already sold 500,000 copies, and there was even a giveaway being held since it came out till the end of January of 1997, where you could win a Scatman mini doll if you send the entry ticker to an official postcard and included your information. Only 1,000 winners were selected that won them. It was all impressive for a foreign artist, but not as much if you had previously sold 2 million with the first album. The label was disappointed, but not John. In fact, things were looking brighter as, due to the New Orleans roots of Everybody Jam, it proposed a shot at cracking the US market properly. So John got new US representation, that being entertainment attorney David Halfant and Joan Rigg, a manager and talent scout with major label experience. Logic Records would become the label that would try once more with John and particularly put out his single Everybody Jam into the US. John was booked for a North American promo tour and went as far as to clear his schedule to focus on the US proper. His viability upticked when he, along with the likes of Kiss and Lauryn Hill, lent his voice in the Scatman's World music video to a national anti-drug PSA for the Musicians Assistance Program run by his friend Buddy Arnold.
I just finished an ad for Drug-Free America that was in correspondence with an organization called MAP. It's Musicians Assistance Program. They collected $2 million from BMG, RCA, Sony, all of these people to help put the kids who got into drug problems touring, to put them into recovery centers. Positive stuff. So it's been great, yeah.
Scatman's World.
My scene's clean, do you know what I mean? My scene's clean, do you know what I mean? My scene's clean, do you know what I mean? It's not here to die.
Life's about living, laughing, loving. Drugs, baby, baby, they ain't about nothing.
It's not here to die.
Drugs, they ain't about nothing.
At this point in time was when things were becoming off with John, as he began to exhibit forgetfulness from time to time, misspelling iceberg when writing emails and asking for things that had already been sent, but most wrote it off as older guy fatigue. John that March, for the first instance of 2 times, appeared on Hollywood's Radio Ooh and Ahs. He discussed further regarding Scatland Foundation, along with stating that Weird Al approved of his album. Weird Al would even go as far as to cover Everybody Jam and Hey You. The only thing that was amiss was when John was losing focus, which he wrote off when in actuality was the sign of things not exactly being alright.
So obviously you were able to turn, a disability, I guess you could call it, into a real asset, because no one on the face of this earth sounds like you on record, on vinyl, on CD.
I'm sorry, I couldn't follow you. I just about passed out here. Apparently it's pretty hot in here, isn't it?
I guess it is a little toasty warm.
I don't know. Oh, sorry, man. Yeah.
Back in Europe, another single from the Everybody Jam album titled Let It Go was put out that year in 1997, and it became the first single by Scatman John to not chart at all. It didn't help matters that it didn't contain the original song to begin with and mainly comprised of remixes based on the Let It Go song, which made it hard for John to spread the word of his organization through press and television without any hits to back the story. Logic Records had been booking John into smaller venues in the US to promote Everybody Jam, and while he tried, he was showing symptoms that were impossible to ignore, even as he chalked it up to stress and overwork. Doctors were warning him to slow down. He was stepping on stage as late as 1:30 a.m., and it was bad enough that he had to cope by getting in touch with the curator for half an hour before getting on with the show. 1997 was becoming a year where John tried his best with the US and focused as much as he could, having cleared months of his calendar only for it all to be a misstep. As by August, Logic had admitted to John they hit a wall. The only gigs for him left were in expat enclaves, rooms full of people who already knew his music and loved him. As for the Everybody Jam single, it did see a release in the US, albeit with remixes received poorly due to their poor quality or lacking any relations with the original song. It didn't help matters that American radio, especially outside of the East Coast, all refused to play the single. So with Scatman's attempts to exceed in the US being all in vain, and elsewhere his notoriety beginning to wane, the intense scrambling began to revive the Scatman project. Tony and Ingo were immediately asked for new demos, but nothing came, as by then they had already went their separate ways. So began the hunt by Iceberg, BMG, and John's US team to hunt for new producers who could reinvent the sound but keep the integrity of what made Scatman John so endearing. Jan introduced John to her husband, Shane Keister, a veteran musician who had worked with Elvis Presley and Paul McCartney. They spent a week or two together in LA, as Shane helped John shape some early demos. They also traded ideas, including a song titled Scat Daddy, which essentially the follow-up to Popstar from Scatman's World, being self-depreciating, humorous, and wondering where the fame went and what it really meant. Jan also called her friend Shane Verdi, a young producer she managed. Verdi had been the lead singer and guitarist to a band called Law & Order, and following the second album and the band's hiatus, was working out of a studio in Manhattan. Jan told John of Shane, stating he was a very talented guy he could work with. So John flew out to go see him, and they became acquainted over lunch at a daily. John wanted more of a street groove for this third album, as he wanted to do something more American sounding. In the end, they ended up recording 4 to 6 tracks. Shane thought this was some of John's best, as he described it. He was down and dirty on those, more mature, a whole different sound. John would end up going into it in more detail when he returned to Hollywood Radio Oohs and Ahs later in November that year.
Now we're creating a third album, something positive here with American beats to try to get Scatman out here, because from a personal point of view, I'm not too tied into failure or success. I'm an older man, I know better. All right, but in terms of putting out something positive to people, that's what matters to me. And I understand that there's an underground of people here who are into Scatman, and that makes me feel good. Yeah. I love being loved by people, man.
I'm in the process now of recording my third album.
You're working on album number 3.
Album number 3, yes, indeed.
Ooh, tell us.
It's a powerhouse, too.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that the name of the album is going to be Journey of Fantasy.
Journey of Fantasy.
And we're going to incorporate some of the new beats here in America.
Ooh.
I got a kid as an engineer. I got to tell you his story. Yes. I have a kid who's got the pink hair. He's got the tattoos. He's got the earrings on all ears. He's got earrings coming out of his nose, and he's in Brooklyn. This kid is an absolute genius. He has created a whole new sound for Scatman, and I look forward to putting out the album. It's about one half way complete. I'm going to fly to Germany, I think, in February and complete the other half. Interesting stuff. We're still trying to put out something positive to the kids.
Yeah.
You know, there is... I want the world to be in the solution rather than the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
So the new album, any idea when it comes out?
We're thinking about April. It's about half completed now. Some more good positive stuff. I told you about the kid in Brooklyn who's creating all of these soundtracks. It's funny. Genius can come out anywhere. It can come out in the old, in the young. It's
in your personality, not what color your hair is.
That's right. Soul ain't got no color. You bet.
Yeah.
And yeah. So the album's coming out. We're going to see how it does in this country. The second album went platinum in Japan.
Congratulations.
400,000 albums, yeah.
So you're working on the third album now and putting together a whole bunch of cool new grooves. We just have to wait until that album's out to see what's going on.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about it. All I can say is that one more time, it's very positive. I can't put out anything negative. I got to put out all something that points towards the solution rather than the problem.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows it's turbulent out there. You know.
That's good. I can't wait till this album comes out. This is going to be cool.
Yeah, it is. We're looking real forward to it. I think it's going to open some ears here, because we've had to put out heavy beats on it. It's like we really turned into...
I was wondering, what's the difference between an American beat and like...
You hear all kinds of stories, huh? I don't know. I hear hard beats over in Europe, and I come over here, and I understand that our beats are going over there, and these beats are going over there. I don't think anyone actually has a handle on it. All I know is we're going to put out some really heavy stuff now. Yeah, man.
Each album has its own personality. I don't even title my albums until they're complete. What we're trying to do is create a very happy album. That's all I can say. Everything that I have to say is in my music. And Scatman is trying to learn to be just a human being, and sometimes it's hard. I had a hard time living in the outside world until I learned to live in the inside world.
John was simply enthusiastic and couldn't wait for American audiences to hear this third album that was taking shape. Around this time in late 1997, John took the time to do his first song for a film, and that became Steal the Bass for Major League's Back to the Minors. It was a song produced by the Producer Jerks and done in America. It later released the following year in 1998 along with the film. Meanwhile, over on Iceberg's End, they were exploring new directions too. After the documentary and its soundtrack, Buena Vista Social Club became a sensation in 1996 in Germany, Manfred sensed a Latin sound might be the way to go forward. And when a production company asked if John could partake in doing a song for the German film Love Scenes from Planet Earth, the timing seemed perfect. John was to do a cover of Perez Padro's Mambo No. 5, and he agreed to do it. It was to be his second movie song gig, following Back to the Minors with Steal the Bass. John was to fly out to Hamburg to record this new Latin sound in February 1998 with a wholly new production team.
I was raised with Spanish people, Puerto Rican people, and that's how I learned at an early age to play salsa.
This third album was shaping out to be a very special and really unique album by John. It was looking to become the most unique and diverse sounding album from the Scatman act yet, with a sound that would appeal to Americans and Latin enjoyers alike. It very much excited John dearly. Before the year ended, John closed out 1997, filling out gigs in Mexico and across Eastern Europe.
I just got back from the Baltic countries. Cold man, snow up to your waist, oh my God.
He was Cold Man John.
That was Cold Man John there, boy. It was something else.
What were you doing over there?
I was on a concert tour, playing for those kids. Oh, those kids are beautiful. It's always a gas to go to those kinds of countries because they need good music there. I played a concert tour there, and I played one hall. I think it was the Lithuania concert hall or something, and it was like, it was like 8,000 screaming kids. They were so glad to see me. Let's see, I just got back from the Baltic countries. Before that, I was into Tokyo. I went to Tokyo about 7 times last year. Wow. It slowed down somewhat, and I'm very grateful.
Unbeknownst to him, however, it would become the last time he performed publicly to an audience. Either way, 1998 was looking to be a great year for John. February of 1998 finally came. John walked in to meet the production team he was to work with, which was Edieso Alejandro and his band of Cubans. John greeted every one of them and knew all their names. Prior to his entrance, they had several demos prepared, one even including a mix of mambo, dance, and reggae, like a circus as Edieso described it. But the first demo they ended up playing for John was a much slower paced one, and it annoyed the face of the label, Edieso's bandmates, but John was deeply enthusiastic with it and began scat singing right away along with it. He loved it. This song would later become Edieso's dream. However, they weren't there to develop demos, but mainly work on the new single, now Scat Mambo, for the upcoming film. It was originally to be a cover of Mambo No. 5 by Perez Padro, but now became a cover of another song by him titled Patricia. John had rare permission to write his own lyrics. It was a bit difficult for John to sing to the syncopation of Cuban music, but was able to work it out. John had a lot of fun recording with these so-called Cuban cats, as he put it, and was eager right away to work with them again, feeling they understood each other musically. Unfortunately, however, John was beginning to swell up. It was odemia. It had only got worse when he returned to LA. Remixes of Scat Mambo were commissioned and Manfred sent early demos around. BMG Arola Hamburg and Tokyo liked what they were hearing, and unofficial radio tests came back glowing. Even better, John had been invited to perform the song live at the German Film Awards in Berlin, broadcast nationwide. A music video was greenlit with director Kasser pitching a joyful full-color shoot in a sun-drenched Havana cigar factory. John would sing as dancers joined in, the musical exuberance spilling from room to room and onto the streets. Things were looking up. Scat Mumbo was to relaunch Scatman with a bang in the summer of 1998. In April, hype and excitement was building up for Scat Mumbo. Meanwhile, John was only getting worse as he had swelled to the point of looking purple. As a friend of Judy's put it, John was a new Michelin man. This swelling was new, and his doctors were running test after test to figure out what was going on with John. He couldn't move anymore and spent most days sat at the dinner table. John was drowning in the circulation, and soon enough, when it got severe, he had an operation to clear the blockage in his blood circulation. John had a significant pulmonary disease, was what his doctor wrote. But he also wrote further that travel was out of the question and against his best medical interests until further evaluation was done. When John found out, he begged if he could at least do the music video, and his doctor relented, saying he must have an oxygen tank both on the ground and in the air. So the German Film Awards performance was cancelled, but the music video was still looking to happen. John was looking and feeling better, and by then, the diagnosis was Sinokawa syndrome, usually caused by cancer, but none were found. The nightmare was over. Judy wrote to Manfred, "John will be better than ever." As John's energy returned, he resumed building his project, Scatland Studio, a in-home studio that would make it so John didn't have to travel as much to record. He spent thousands on it by then. He even faxed Ingo Kays about it, saying he should come over and see it. As before Tony or Ingo came over during the making of Everybody Jam, John did buy a Yamaha DC3II Disc Slaver Grand for his home, and had the ambitions for years to have an in-house studio.
Oh, I'm a group guy. I got a jazz quintet at home. We play that straight ahead John Coltrane stuff. It isn't for everyone, but oh, can we play? I'll tell you, we have such a great time.
He had laid down tracks of his Sunday Quintet and started writing a new ballad, Can You Hear Me? A song dedicated to children of the world of all ages. The very audience he had been reaching out to for nearly the past 4 years. John was having Alcoholics Anonymous meetings at his home extensively at this time, as a guilt loomed over him during his battle with odemia, and it was his morphine use. He used it to numb the massive amounts of pain he felt, but even after he was all in the clear, it didn't stop. For John, it was a new version of the same medical addiction he had dealt with in the past way back when. He didn't like he had used morphine so much and felt people would look at him differently. Then, when John's lawyer found out he was going to fly to Cuba, he put the brakes on those plans as it would put his US passport at risk. And the morphine use raised red flags. Travel in John's condition was a liability, and to top it all off, John's doctor said no as well. BMG and Iceberg were left in the dark in regards to John's health problems. Manfred was in Japan, back from a meeting where everyone was ecstatic and in pure joy, clapping and looking forward to the music video. Now he was told John had been grounded. He was not happy to say the least, telling John, if you're trying to kill your potential hit, you couldn't do a better job. Eckhart Gundel, managing director of BMG Arola Hamburg, was telling Judy on the phone that there was no path to success if John didn't leave the house. He hadn't been seen by the public in nearly a year. There was a hard deadline for the music video, as the movie was to release in August 1998 and the single had to be out by then. With Cuba off the table, location scouts were at work scouting to film in Miami or somewhere in South America. John's health was so uncertain that they even considered using a stunt double. John, on the other hand, was grateful it won't be till August they filmed. He knew the importance of the music video, but his body needed a fair amount of time to heal. He also resumed production on the third album by working on new tracks, and a new producer by the name of Kai Mathinson, known for the 1996 hit Mr. President's Coco Jumbo, had some demos lined up for John to give a listen to. Unfortunately, John never got the chance. One evening in late June, he clutched his chest in pain, wheezing as he couldn't breathe. He was rushed to the ER by ambulance after Judy called for one. The doctors found he showed signs of acute bronchitis and lung abnormities, but the diagnosis was unknown. He was leaning towards malignancy, and no cancer had been found. A bronchoscopy confirmed the same. Judy wrote to Manfred, "Yeah, team." John, however, needed an open lung biopsy to be sure. A serious procedure with at least a month of recovery. And just like that, the video shoot was out of the question. John was deeply disappointed the music video couldn't come to be, as the success of Scat Mumbo mattered just as much to him as it did to Iceberg and BMG. He hoped it was salvageable, and alas, it was not. There were considerations of doing an animated music video to give a single a fighting chance, but it all fell through. Scat Mumbo was released in the fall of 1998 without its artist to promote it, and it barely made a ripple. It was a far cry from the successes of the years past. Now all attention turned to the third Scatman John album, which had been shelved, put on hold, being developed over a year. It was now the final shot at momentum. In mid-July, John went in for the lung biopsy. They didn't find anything. While it made seem all things were good on the surface, John's body was a canvas of old damage. He had taken it through the wrecker, and his years of sobriety hadn't erased any of the past damage. He was used to pain and strangeness, so he came through. An album recording session was booked and lined up for September in Bremen, Germany. John was rightfully not so enthusiastic about it, as unfortunately, what were shaping up to be some really great songs, the New York and Cuban demos, were all rejected in favor of wholly new material. Especially what John did in New York with Shane Verdi, none of it made the cut. John wanted a Latin studio, and especially with Latin artists. John was so Bristol about it that he even tried to back out of going, but the flights, production team, and studio time were all booked, so there was no choice on his end. The Latin sound was something John ultimately did get in the final album, albeit fairly compromised in ways. Manfred tried to reassure John by saying the following: "Let's do a great album. That's all that counts. Let's get Scatman to the top again. Then we can do experiments and I will be with you to try other things out." But John was not completely sold. He told Manfred, "Are we forgetting that my original audience is older now?" His first fans were now in their late teens, and he wanted to meet back with them where they were. Which the title track, Take Your Time, did just that. John wanted a song to address the young men that felt pressure to act macho and rush into love, when, as he said in the song, that the first relationship they needed was with themselves. As John said regarding the meaning of the song, "Somehow I learned at an early age that you're not supposed to have emotions. You're not supposed to show them." A song from the Cuban demos, EDSO's Dream, was a song John wanted on the album, and while it did make the cut, it got retitled The Dream Away, as the original name wasn't so commercial. However, John got around it by thanking EDSO in the lyrics.
Thank you, it is your brother of mine, as we all walk together in the sands of time.
John, for most of the production with this album, was unfortunately not at full strength, as he was still recovering from the biopsy and often felt weak, which is what caused his weak singing and delivery on many songs. Another factor in what led to the album sounding the way it does is all the tracks on the album were completely finished and prepared just for John to sing and scat over, rather than what had been done previously, which is to build the song around what John did vocally. Kai Matheson and his assistant Billy King didn't suspect anything was amiss when working with John, but Manfred certainly did, as John didn't really record for long and really needed rest breaks very often. His energy wasn't really there. John and Judy returned home for a break, and in October, they flew back to Germany to finish the album. And this time, John was feeling fairly better, with more color in his cheeks. It was to record 2 sessions, one in Munich, with Tobias Gad to record the Chickadee song, and another with John Ravenhall for a cover of Elton John's Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word, a cover that he would thank a person by the name of Otto for giving him the idea. He was in much better spirits, especially on the Chickadee song, where he duetted with great energy than shown previously on other songs. Just like that, Take Your Time had wrapped ahead of schedule, and John returned to LA with a demo in hand. John and Judy threw a New Year's Eve party, looking forward to the new year. All of them dancing to Dream Again on the stereo, and John playing 9 whole sets of jazz with his friends. John and Judy laughed into the midnight, throwing confetti and balloons into the air, not knowing that John's final year of life had begun. The first thing John did with the new year was he agreed to appear in a documentary called Danny and the Scatman, that was mainly about a kid that stuttered named Danny, who had previously seen John way back when at that very stuttering convention that John presented in 1995. It was Peter Nick's thesis documentary for his college, but John didn't just agree to appear in it, he also paid for Danny and his mother to go see him in February 1999. He gave Danny a tour of the house and spent time with him. The documentary also mentioned his upcoming album. And over in Germany, Kay Mathinson was tweaking tracks on Take Your Time till the very end as he DJ and played to see what worked and what didn't work. Presented the final album to BMG and they were pleased. The first single was to release in May, then the full album the next month. There also came a compilation release to keep Scatman in the public consciousness, just simply titled Scatman, that featured several songs from his first 2 albums. When it came time to promote the 3rd upcoming Scatman John album, John was ready to do his part too. Now that his health issues were mostly behind him, he gave the go-ahead to book TV slots with the one condition: being under doctor's orders, his stress levels should be kept to a minimum, and he couldn't do any more live performances, only miming from start to finish. Then John did the standalone interviews for the documentary. It would mark the last time he was ever filmed.
In this society, you can't always become what you want. I struggled for years as a jazz artist.
His doctor confirmed it to John. He had tumor markers in his blood that were confirmed to be cancer, but another biopsy came inconclusive. John couldn't believe it, but he was ready to fight it anyhow as he began chemotherapy. In the meantime, he kept working, finalizing plans to the Scatland Foundation and answering fan mail. The hits might have stopped in '96, but not the fan mail. Kids were asking John where could they get his music, as by then, they were off the shelves, which led John to write to Manfred asking if BMG could fulfill the orders. Even at this point, John still cared deeply for those who tuned into his music. John by June had completely shaved his head bald, as the hairs were falling out from his chemotherapy. His hair hadn't even had the chance to go gray yet. He joked that he could now do throat chants like a monk. The Take Your Time single had already been out for a month but struggled to gain radio play. Without promotion and nobody knowing what John even looked like anymore, BMG chose to not invest any further. And when the 3rd Scatman John album, Take Your Time, finally released, it didn't take long for it to be relicensed to another label. Despite being an album that nearly spent 2 years in development, its release came and went with little fanfare. While songs such as Take Your Time and Dream Away were made from John's original vision, much of the material that excited him the most never made the final record. The New York sessions with Shane Verdi were left behind. The more American sound John had spoken enthusiastically about in 1997 were largely absent. The Cuban collaborations that had inspired him so greatly were reduced to only a handful of surviving ideas. Even the momentum behind Scat Mumbo had long since evaporated. What finally emerged was not entirely the album John had imagined when work first began. Instead of the diverse, experimental direction he had spent years exploring, Take Your Time largely returned to a familiar Eurodance formula. For some fans, the album felt less adventurous than its predecessors. Not because it lacked strong songs, but because it only hinted at the far more ambitious record that it might have been. The release was so abrupt that John didn't even know it came out until a phone call with 2 fans of his from the UK told him so. But it didn't matter, as he felt he had the very best of life. He had tasted beauty. Just days following after this phone call, however, John and Judy got the news. John, having done massive amounts of inhalant drugs, along with years spent smoking cigarettes since he was 12 till he was 52, buying dentures just for performing in public, was diagnosed with smoker's lung cancer. Fast growing and aggressive, it often ducked scans, masked symptoms, and hid itself until it was everywhere it shouldn't be. By the time it showed itself in John, he had already reached his brain. The doctors gave him the final blow. They told him that there was nothing they could do. Quietly in July that year, in Japan only, there came a single featuring the Chickadee song, featuring a faster edit of the Chickadee song and a radio edit of Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word. Both would appear in the Japanese edition of Take Your Time, which only featured 3 different edits rather than wholly new songs. Then the final single within John's lifetime came, and it being Ichi ni San Go, his tribute song dedicated to all of his Japanese fans as he sang a dance number with Japanese lyrics, featuring numbers in Japanese 1, 2, 3, 5, Ichi ni San Go. It was released in Europe and found modest success in Germany, but that was that. John was devastated by the news, completely shattered. It took time for John to only start letting people back into his life in those remaining months of his life, as after the anger passed, he let it go. Alcoholics Anonymous meetings resumed in his living room, and later, with what strength he had left, as his friends stood by his side, he finished what would become his final song, Can You Hear Me?, before he got far too ill. It was the last time he ever recorded. By September 1999, Iceberg were left in the dark as Manfred and his wife Matette were only told John had been very ill and not very mobile, but no more beyond that. Invitations for promotional gigs were still coming in, but Manfred didn't know what to say. Despite Judy clinging on to dear hope for some kind of solution, John accepted what was coming, as John's health never got any better. His final months marked illness that got worse and worse. By the end, he couldn't recognize many people, and what hair he had left grayed out severely. Along with no longer being able to walk, a friend of his, a big strong Ethiopian man, had to scoop him up into his arms and carry him out to get some sunlight. Manfred eventually got to have a video call with John and knew without saying anything that John was not coming back. And on December 3rd of 1999, John passed away, bringing an end to the Scatman project. He was only 57, surrounded by his friends, family, and animals.
If there's one thing I would like to tell all of the kids there, it could be true that your greatest problem could turn out to be your greatest asset. Because I am Scatman John because I stutter.
The news of his death spread so fast across the early internet that the traffic crashed servers hosting his site.
Oh, I love you! I want you all to give yourself a hand just for being here.
Across the internet, many paid respects and said plenty about John, how impactful he was.
I get to help people, man. What greater thing is there to do? Because I got to a point in me, man, where I got so tired of me, self, give me, I want, I need. It just got boring. You know, I want to try to help. So anyhow.
Following his death in the year 2000, a re-release was put out of the Take Your Time single, featuring a dedication to John. It had 2 remixes removed. Then in 2001, Judy, in collaboration with Manfred, both put out an album compromising of John's music before his Scatman persona. It was titled Listen to the Scatman. It included music from the John Larkin album and John Larkin Sings mixtape. It featured many of John's performances of jazz standards and was released solely on the Iceberg label. Judy tried to move on but ultimately never truly did, even after moving out of the home John bought and having already scattered his ashes. Lastly, in 2002, only in Japan, a compilation of John's entire career would be put out titled The Best of Scatman John, which this time featured music from his 3rd album and the tracks he did only for Japan. It would be a far better capsule of John's discography as the Scatman John. When looking back on the nearly 5-year career of Scatman John, it is very telling of how much he resonated with others for how much he accomplished in such a time span. Even with the wealth he amassed, he only ever still wanted to give back rather than take. In the years following his death, he would never be forgotten. While there were still offers coming in to license the song that began it all, or do a cover, the internet would be where John truly endured, with appearances in YouTube Poops and in Super Mario 64 related videos. introducing to John to those who weren't around for his prime. No matter where, John was being discovered and earning new fans with every listen of his music. It's only been in fairly recent years there's been material being discovered and finally released to the public. The previously mentioned 1978 session with Duke McVinnie, seeing a press to vinyl, and digital release following the biography's release in February 2026. John's final song, Can You Hear Me, finally seeing a release alongside a new press of Scatman's World on vinyl. The New York sessions with Shane Verdi finally being uncovered and due to be released sometime soon, and in 2023, when a jam session between John Larkin, Bill Marcus, and Peter Thorkildsen from 1993 was put to vinyl. Personally, I give it the title, Experience. Although it is sad to think about what could have been, and how Scatman John could have truly evolved if John was in far better health, I am still glad he was able to leave such an impact on music regardless, as many of the lessons, wisdoms he shared wouldn't be there if it weren't for the life he actually lived. I just wish that John knew how much his legacy endures, to know that every day there are still people discovering him, fans still on the lookout to purchase his music, or that there are new fans interested in his story. He would react to all of that with the same enthusiasm he always showed from the beginning. But perhaps he always knew that his music would stand the test of time, because even on his first 2 albums, in the liner notes, after sharing his gratitude to those closest, those responsible for the Scatman, and was concluding what he had to say directly to you, the listener, he always stated, "As long as you need me, I will always be here for you."
I'm very, very grateful, and I'll be here as Scatman for as long as the kids need me. I'll be here.
Scoba-bee da, Scoba-bee-ba-ba-bee-ba-da, Ski-ba-bee-ay, Sky-ay. I'm calling out from Scatland, calling out from Scatman's World. If you want to break free, listen to me, you've got to learn how to see in your fantasy. Ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-dee-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ding-da-ga-dong-da-ding-da-dong-dong. Ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-dee-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-ba-ba, dee-ba-ba-dee-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-ba-ba. I'm calling out from Scatland, I'm calling out from Scatman's World. If you want to break free, you better listen to me. You've got to learn how to see in your fantasy. I'm calling out from Scatland, I'm calling out from Scatman's World. If you want to break free, you better listen to me. You've got to learn how to see in your fantasy. Everybody's talking something very shocking just to keep on blocking what they're feeling inside. But listen to me, brother, you just keep on walking, 'cause you and me and sister ain't got nothing to hide. Scatman, fat man, black and white and brown man, tell me about the color of your soul. If part of your solution isn't ending the pollution, then I don't want to hear your stories told. Welcome to the Scatman's World. Ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-ba-ba, be-ba-ba-dee-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-ba-ba, be-ba-ba-dee-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-bo-be, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-ba-ba, be-ba-ba. I'm calling out from Scatland, I'm calling out from Scatman's World. If you want to break free, you better listen to me. You've got to learn how to see in your fantasy. Everybody's born to compete as he chooses, but how can someone win if winning means that someone loses? I sit and see and wonder what it's like to be in touch. No wonder all my brothers and my sisters need a crutch.
I wanna be a human being, not a human doing. I couldn't keep that pace up if I tried. The source of my intention really isn't crime prevention. My intention's prevention of the lie. Yeah, welcome to the Scatman's world. Bop-o bay, bop-a-ba-do, bop-bop-bop, bee-bop-a-dee, bop-o bay, bop-a-ba-do, bop-bop-bop, bee-bop-a-dee, bop-o bay, bop-a-ba-do, bop-o bay, bop-a-ba-do, bop-o bay, bop-a-ba-do, bop-bop-bop. I'm calling out from Scatland. I'm calling out from Scatman's world. If you wanna break free, you better listen to me. You've got to learn how to see in your fantasy. Yeah, yeah. Pop-o bay, pop-a-ba-do, pop-pop-pop, bee-bop-a-dee, pop-o bay, pop-a-ba-do, pop-pop-pop, bee-bop-a-dee, pop-o bay, pop-a-ba-do, pop-o bay, pop-a-ba-do, pop-o bay, pop-a-ba-do, pop-a, yeah. Yeah, I'm calling out from Scatman's world. If you wanna break free, listen to me. You've got to learn how to see in your fantasy. Listen to me. Calling out from Scatland. Yeah, calling out from Scatman's world. If you wanna break free, listen to me. Got to learn how to see in your fantasy. I'm calling out from Scatland. Calling out from Scatman's world. If you wanna break free, listen to me. You've got to learn how to see in your fantasy. Oh, thank you, thank you.